I mean, I put on the, I don't know if you guys saw in the Facebook group, that little blurb, basically describing what the objection is.
Is that recent?
Yeah, maybe a few hours ago, I think.
Oh.
It was just a written response to a question I asked.
Yeah.
Like today.
No, today.
What
I'll,
the topic of being a good person is going into.
yeah, just kind of explaining. I just kind of wrote, basically it's saying, why isn't just being a good person enough? Why not just be good, accept all the virtues and social teachings, and leave out all the unnecessary spiritual and metaphysical stuff out? Essentially, why can't I be a good person? Why do I need religion? It's pretty big. I think this one and religion causes war are probably the two biggest, maybe even bigger than the atheism topic or existence of God topic, because the vast majority of people that are non-religious would probably have this as a bigger sort of issue than the existence of God. But it's kind of more seen as more of a unprovable or philosophical question in the first place, so it's kind of ignored for the most part, I think. So for this, yeah, so like the way it's worded here, this is what sort of Rob put together on this topic. We'll go through and it'll cover quotes and cover different topics and different aspects of it. As usual, we sort of approach these type of questions and objections with empathy first, trying to understand what where they're coming from and how one can feel that way, and it's how legitimate that objection can be, and then try to address it itself, in and of itself. And then just as an overview, yes, as it says here, why would God care about anything other than virtues, ethics, etc.? Why does he care what I call myself? Why do I have to be Christian or be Baha'i or be whatever? I don't want to label myself. That's another one, right? I'm already trying to be a good person. Why does it matter if I'm whatever? So I think there's three things that should be established at first. Then we'll go around and we'll sort of read turn by turn. One, that they believe in God. We'll just assume the person is believing in God, or even if they don't, they'll have to assume that God exists in this discussion. Just because if that's an issue, if that's a issue for that person, then that should be discussed, because there's no real point of talking about religion and its validity and its truth if you already believe God doesn't exist. So that's even a sort of a more primary issue. Yeah. So let's just assume for now the person already believes in God or some kind of a higher power exists, and then that they're striving to be a good person, and that will even grant sort of a third criteria, which is that they even accept a lot of the social teachings and virtues of Baha'i and the Baha'i faith, just not the claim of manifestation of God or his world order and stuff like that. Yeah, it's huge, this question. Essentially, if I can just throw in my own thought, just a super quick thing, that what it all boils down to me, doesn't really answer it, but I think it's the sort of the matrix of it, which is that it comes down to definition of terms. That's really the sort of misunderstanding or miscommunication in this whole topic. How good is defined and how religion is defined. Because those two things are sort of, each party is defining it in different ways, this objection would naturally come out, right? So if your understanding of religion, of what it is to be religious, is to make yourself a better person, then yeah, obviously, why would you want to need religion? Just be a better person. Why would you need to be Christian if you're just trying to be a good person anyways, right? So, and under that definition, it does totally sound obsolete, right? Anyways, let's just continue. So, should we just go around, if that's okay? It's sort of pretty self-evident, like throughout what we're reading. Doesn't need much sort of input, but obviously anyone that has comments or questions or whatever, feel free to interject. So should we just go clockwise?
The purpose of this section is to try to establish points of agreement with our non-religious friends. Though these may come up in conversation, trying to find commonalities, similar values with people we are talking to is extremely important. A just God could not judge a person for rejecting him without giving them more than reasonable ability to accept him first, for whatever that might mean. B, religion must be in line with reason. C, the necessity and importance of virtue.
So we're just going to cover these 3 points in this section here. Just points that not necessarily trying to rebut their objection, but just going, you know what, there's actually common ground we can find here. One of them is the fact that if we believe God is all just, then he would judge us based on valid reasons for accepting him or rejecting him, right? And secondly, that religion must be in line with reason. Obviously, we're going to rule out any topic of being religious just because your parents said so, or superstition, and all that kind of stuff, right? So, you know, let's sort of say it right outright, right in the beginning, at the outset, that we're going to try to discuss this whole topic within the confines of reason and evidence. And then thirdly, the necessity and the importance of virtue. We'll find why that's in there towards the end, but just emphasizing that as well from a religious standpoint. So let's just keep going.
How far from the grace of the all-bountiful and from his loving providence and tender mercies, it is to single out a soul from amongst all men for the guidance of his creatures, and on one hand to withhold from him full measure of his divine testimony, and on the other inflict severe retribution on his people for having turned away from his chosen. It follows therefore that every man hath been and will continue to be able himself to appreciate the beauty of God and glorify him. And when not been endowed in such capacity, how could he be called to account for his faith?
Any thoughts on what that means to you? Mm-hmm.
To me, that bring up what we talked about last Thursday in Acts, where it's about how we ought to be just and also like gracious at the same time. How can you punish somebody but still be merciful? And I think it must be where this quote comes from. Some Rob was explaining how the only way in his mind back in it is for him to be just in that people are being punished in a way, like they're not achieving their full potential, but they don't always know it. So whatever state they're at or what level they're at, they're pretty content. But they still feel the challenges and the pressure. Really aware of the level to which they could be. Which I think from this quote.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see now.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good. This reminds me of actually another passage in the Book of Certitude, where Baha'u'llah is basically addressing a common, I guess, objection that a lot of Muslims have, that the Bible has been corrupted, like literally corrupted, and so it's not reliable as the Word of God anymore. So it's just been twisted basically by clerics for so long over the centuries that that's no longer, what God had sent down to mankind. And in Book of Certitude, Baha'i is sort of kind of giving this answer, which is that if that divine mercy or that divine testimony here is being withheld, so what the people have isn't the testimony of God, or isn't the word of God, then how is it just for God to judge them based on false information, right? So God wouldn't do that. So there's a interesting connection. This might be actually from the same book, now that I think of it, because Gleanings is a sort of a compilation of different of Baha'u'llah's writings, so that it's possible from there. Any other thoughts?
Wait.
No?
Isn't this like first like A reading isn't this?
Yeah, just God simply.
But like the A above it, that line.
It says adjust.
Yeah.
Isn't that assuming that they're rejecting God?
Well, sorry, can you clarify before I answer?
Like it's saying a just God cannot judge a person for rejecting him. For
Right.
rejecting God?
Well, yeah, in this case, it should be maybe clarified that God manifested on earth. So the method of knowing God. So yeah, a prophet or a messenger of some kind. From the Baha'i perspective, God, as far as we'll know, as far as we'll ever
So this is saying that
understand.
they accept God, but they reject. They don't only reject religion, but they reject the manifestations of God as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's also what's being sort of muddied up as well. When people say religion, what does that mean? Does that mean religious people? Does that mean the ideology? Does that mean the prophet or the founder? Does that mean God? Like, there's so much confusion. Yeah, the organization. Yeah.
I just think that.
So we'll discuss that and we'll get into that. But just as far as this section is concerned, one, we've already granted that an ultimate reality exists. There's a God.
Yeah.
But that the God would be just in his capacity to allow people to recognize or to know His will on earth.
So we're assuming.
So if it's gonna be through a religion, it'll be done in a justified way.
Okay, so we're not assuming. Are we assuming that they reject the idea of religion, or they?
All of it, religion, messenger.
Or they just.
I think it would depend on an individual.
Yeah, that's
like,
it.
For some people, they might struggle more. They might think that there's like something bigger than themselves, but they might not know necessarily what to call it. So in that case, maybe being able to explain some of the attributes of God might help for that person.
Because I think, like, I know people like believe like the manifestations of God might be true, but they just still think that religion is unnecessary.
Yeah. There's lots who. Yeah, who say they'll say that Jesus was divine or good or had beautiful teachings and stuff like that, but that religion has blah 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 over the years. Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of variation here. I'm trying to make it the worst case scenario, just so it covers them as well, just in case. So let's continue. What's that? Oh, thank you. Yeah, sir, please.
The independent investigation. God has endowed man with intelligence and reason, whereby he is required to determine the verity of questions and propositions. If religious beliefs and opinions are found contrary to the standards of science, they are mere superstitions and imaginations. For the antithesis of knowledge is ignorance, and the child of ignorance is superstition. Unquestionably, there must be agreement between true religion and science. If a question be found contrary to reason, faith and belief in it are impossible, and there is no outcome but wavering and vacillation.
And it kind of, I mean, aside from this, like, it's a beautiful quote, and aside from the fact that religion and religious scripture must be understood within the context of reason and these types of things. If you think about it also on a personal level, it kind of makes sense that it would have to be that way. Meaning, if you found something, like, for example, let's say you're reading something as a Christian in the Bible, and sorry, you're not a Christian, but you're investigating Christianity. You want to become a Christian. You're just almost there, and what Jesus says doesn't make sense to you at all, but you accept that anyways. You won't be able to fully believe it. Like, you might accept it as, like, kind of like blind faith type of thing, but you won't actually believe it because it doesn't make sense to you. It doesn't. How can you believe something that doesn't make sense? You know what I'm saying? It's like saying, like, someone comes up to you and says, Jesus walked on water and he's coming to give you salvation for your sins, and you just say, okay. Nobody has ever done that. It's always been through some kind of explanation of some sort of reasoning of, like, okay, yeah, I believe you. There's some kind of a belief going on. At minimum, I'm not saying they'll provide, like, DNA evidence or something, but there'll be some sort of reasoning to it, whatever that may be. So for there to be no reason at all, it just kind of doesn't make sense anyway. Any other thoughts? It's kind of like working towards, from what I see, it's like, okay, we already established that God exists. We can start from there, and then we can say that if God exists, obviously he would be a just God, and how he would be able to be recognized, or to be able, and if he's going to be just, he would want to be merciful as well. And if he's going to be merciful, these are sort of all things that flow from the other. He would want to have some sort of compassion and mercy on people. A God that's completely cut off from humanity isn't a very merciful or compassionate God whatsoever, right? There has to be some sort of desire to communicate its will to ours, right? If the God is trying to imbue its beauties and its principles and its justices and truths and mercies to humanity, it would need some sort of communication, and that communication would have to be in accordance with justice, one, and in accordance with reason, what we discussed before, the previous quote. Sorry, this quote with reason, and then as well we'll go to the next section, which is that it must necessarily include, obviously, the qualities that we would describe as good in this whole topic of good person. It would obviously include those things as well. I'm just trying to make it flow conversationally, you know what I mean? Just from one idea to the next, so we can imagine what a discussion on that topic could sound like. Because sometimes just reading the text, it's not really we're not able to connect it to a dialogue.
The necessity and importance of virtue, and yet is not the object of every revelation to effect the transformation in the whole character of mankind, a transformation that shall manifest itself both outwardly and inwardly, that shall affect both its inner life and external conditions. For if the character of mankind be not changed, The futility of God's universal manifestations would be apparent.
Can you summarize that maybe? Read it again?
Yeah, I'll read it again. Can I read it again?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. And yet is not the object of every revelation to effect the transformation in the whole character of mankind. A transformation that shall manifest itself both outwardly and inwardly, that shall affect both its inner life and external conditions. For if the character of mankind be not changed, the futility of God's universal manifestations would be apparent.
He's saying that basically every religion must have an effect on society, on the character of society, and if it doesn't, it just proves that the manifestations would be useless.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. There's one more quote.
The most vital thing to this day is to make our judgments, not to millions or evil things. Inasmuch as the purpose of our life is to of God, the divine of the limitless lives of the invisible, is to educate the souls of men, and refine the character of every living man. And hence these divine discourse be revealed from the inner self and the mind, about to the manifestation of the area. The ways of the sun, truth will have no effect.
In Christian terminology and also in Baha'i terminology, there's a concept called being born again, which is Abdul Baha talks about it as well. And the process of sort of an individual transformation to such an extent where it's a new you. You're in a way born again. It's a new person even. Related to what? So that is sort of one of the symptoms. It's one of the things that you notice is that it's the desire to also change those sort of characteristics and habits and behaviors towards nobility and stuff like that. But you're asking, what is it? How does it demonstrate the proof of the manifestation?
Yeah.
It doesn't. No, it's saying that if that wasn't there, then it would show that it's not a sort of, it's kind of useless. So it by necessity has to be. It's a very necessary byproduct in a way. That's how I read it. It's like someone who's a super awesome soccer player, but he's also healthy. The natural byproduct of being a soccer player is, maybe that's not why he's a soccer player, to be healthy, but he's going to be healthy and fit by being a professional soccer player. And if you have soccer players that are, extremely unhealthy or obese or whatever, then you can kind of see that they're really not soccer players in a way. I don't know if that analogy works at all, but so let's read the last. I'll read the last concluding paragraph. To conclude this unit, seeking a point of agreement, God is just, and his justice demands evidence if he is to then inflict severe retribution upon us and call us to account for our failure to accept his faith. This is often the cry of the secular person, in fact, that there must be evidence. We agree. Second, we must flee from ignorance and superstition. We are required to use intellect, and faith can only be conditioned upon reason. Finally, we covered the thoroughly evident point that virtue and conduct are essential facets in the Baha'i faith. All this places us on common ground with our secular friends. So aside from these sort of points of agreement and of empathy and of common ground and all that, I also wanted to ask you guys, like, what are some of your own, like, if someone does ask you this question, how would you sort of empathize and try to relate to that perspective? You know what I mean?
What question?
So the main objection of being, why can't I just be a good person? You know what I mean? Sure. Yeah. Like if that has ever come up in any discussions between you and your friends or whatever, what have you sort of, or what would you want to say as far as empathy goes and as far as trying to understand where they come from?
Because I was empathizing is probably the words that have been caused in the name of strife and contention. Even like visual has that, that's a pertinent issue, right? So yeah, trying to empathize always it makes sense. Like, from an objective standpoint, you look at all these things and you're like, why should I even bother?
Yeah.
Associating something it's going to cause all these divisions. So I think that's the most relatable, I guess, point that a lot of people can get behind, right?
I think one thing also is, like I've been reading a lot more recently, but I've been thinking about it, meeting with Baha'i in our community. But one of like the key points I think to bring up is just the need for spiritual education, which is not something. I don't think it's something necessarily that one can say I can spiritually educate myself on my own, because it's very like people would say that, I think, but I guess it's a very social, like it's a social construct of what that means, kind of thing. Like people would say going to yoga is a way of like spiritual education. Like I can see, but rather like what, like how can we spiritually educate ourselves for the betterment of all of society, and not just for ourselves.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it's a lot. I think it just, like if you try to just develop or like gain spiritual education in a way that you think you're contributing to the betterment of society, a lot of people like go back to like, oh, I'm gonna go do like service in the form of like going helping out at a soup kitchen or something, which is not like a bad thing or anything, but is that something that's going to heal all of society? Like, is that are you helping, like even helping other people gain spiritual education?
So, but that's good as far as like the answers are, like how one would contribute to the answers. But how about empathy? How would you be able to say, like, I understand where you're coming from because, blah, blah, blah. Just to start from there, just because it helps I think with just the psyche of the individual at minimum, if not just for a good true conversation, but even at minimum, I think when someone brings out an objection and the other person goes, yeah, but what about, and negates it right away, it's seen as like, okay, you don't really get what I'm saying, you don't really get me, you don't get my position, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think if and I think this applies in general to everything. If you're able to like somehow go, well, that's true because that totally makes sense. At the same time, and then after that, maybe offer something. But to start with something would be really sort of brings
I
down.
don't really know what the court said. I didn't hear
Sure, yeah.
anything, but I've had this specific conversation before. And like I didn't really know really what to answer, so I basically was like, well, what do you consider a good person? Where did you get this idea of what a good person is?
What do you mean by good?
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're usually like, oh, you want to be like nice and do this and that, like the usual answers. I was like, well, where did you get that idea? Like that came from somewhere before like all the messed up stuff happening was normal.
How do you know where you draw the line?
Hmm. Yeah.
Stop being nice and having to defend somebody.
Yeah.
What if like a way of empathizing with them, like be like talking about how some people are like religious in a sense, but like they're just like the Sunday Christian kind of thing. Would that be like the way that empathizing with them? Like,
So a lot of explaining. So you're saying like a lot of there are a lot of religious people out there who are sort of
just religious-
hypocritical
Yeah,
that may be saying that they're religious, but in fact they don't really care at all.
yeah.
Put it that way.
I guess listening to the objections like that.
Yeah.
But also, to some extent, I actually do agree that being a good person can be fun. It does say, like, in ratings, it's something basically a high, but how
Yeah, it's true.
there's something very, like, having very strong moral confidence.
Yeah.
And always does what they think is right versus giving into their lesser character.
It's
they,
awesome.
They can be a very morally bad person already. So
Yeah, for
in
sure.
that case, like, I don't really think that it's my personal place to like, judge them on where
Yeah.
they're at in their experience.
Yeah.
But to offer some extra guidance would be like, oh, that's wonderful. Like I really learned a lot myself through the teachings. Felt my own spiritual compass, know where to go, where to draw lines.
Yeah.
Maybe you can offer your own
That's awesome. Yeah.
experiences to make your own judgment.
Good time, yeah. Empathize. The difference, I think, is empathy is, if someone can correct me, like trying to understand it, but sympathize, saying, oh, I also feel that way.
Yeah,
Right?
put yourself in their shoes and say,
Yeah.
I've been where you are, I'm feeling
Yeah.
your feelings, and things more like, I feel sorry for you.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I might not
One's more
really
detached.
know,
Yeah.
what you're going through.
Yeah.
It's the idea of
Like, I want to sit with you on your side of the table, you know, kind of thing.
really, thinking about love, it would be, religion, institutional structure, and I'll also see that when you see these institutions exist and belongs and seeing another, like we also see the that I think people
Yeah.
criticize religion based off of that aspect of it, like seeing people
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's true. I think not that something I would say to a person, but just sort of in my own mind, like an abstract way of thinking of it is that I can empathize because I can understand where they're coming from, because so much of what, two things. One, so much of what they are exposed to of religion, whether through news or through friends or people who knock on their door or whatever, are such almost like, you know, not just distortion, but even caricatures of what religion actually is or are or were. But as well, if they even have friends who are religious, who are practicing and good people and all that, oftentimes the way they would present their religion to non-religious people are in ways that are sort of gauged to the secular mind. You know what I mean? They almost present their religion in as a secular solution in a way. Meaning, so how religion is presented is like, for example, sort of a very progressive Christian might say, Jesus taught us to turn the other cheek, or give to the poor, or a Muslim might say, Islam emphasizes so much on charity, and this is how these types of aspects of their faith that's how they describe it and how they sort of teach their faith. And so when it's interpreted and presented in such a way that's so secularized, from the secular perspective, it's like, okay, that's all really nice, but then, like, okay, that's great, but that kind of puts the onus on the religious person saying, I accept all those things without being Muslim or Christian. Why are you Muslim or Christian? It kind of, you know what I mean? It kind of makes it the secularists, yeah.
Oh, right.
Because everything that the religious person is presenting as their religion are all secular, humanist, worldly.
When they present it,
Yeah.
being incorporated into our society to
Yeah.
such an extent that a lot of it is taken for granted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think
Good.
any like sort of metaphysical, scriptural, covenantal aspects of the religion are basically left out. Maybe even sometimes uncomfortably, like, I don't want to go there, right? So then by not going there, you're just presenting a sort of a secular version of the religion. So it's like, well, why do I need this part? So what I'm trying to say is that with that, this may not be the case, by the way, with all secularists, but with keeping that in mind helps me go, like that. I totally get that, because how it's been presented to you your whole life is like, yeah, that objection completely makes sense.
I also think to truly say that you do believe in God and how you have to at some point consider that the validity of it. You have to have considered whether God does exist.
Yeah.
To actually say that you fully committed to.
It's true.
So I think in that way you can probably relate, because most of us have probably gone through some period where we questioned it, right?
Yeah, big time.
And if you don't question it, then you're believing blindly.
Yeah.
Just giving in tradition or superstition. So
It's absolutely correct.
I think it's natural for people to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe be a bit skeptical about somebody just saying, "Hey, believe this."
Mm-hmm. And I think it helps as well, this sort of empathy exercise, in that it puts it in the context of well, here's something that I can show you or offer you that may be something that you would agree with. Kind of like what you're saying, right? In that sense, it presented in a totally non-antagonistic, sort of convincing sort of
I think
way.
it really appeals to people. Like, it's so easy to get into a debate where you have to try to prove my side versus
Yeah.
their side. Versus, like, honestly, a lot of times people have, whether they are from a different background or a different belief, there's still something they can offer you that can help you.
Yeah.
So that's
Hey man, how you doing?
Yeah.
Good. Good to see you, buddy. Yeah. Want to bring that chair? Thank you very much.
I mean, a big point for this topic too is, like, it's good to be a good person on an individual, but when you want to have an impact, like globally or in the community, it's good to have like a group of like-minded individuals, which is where I look at the Baha'i community can actually offer quite a bit to a community. Because anybody can participate in things like youth programs and community building events and service projects. So even just developing one's own spiritual mindset.
There's a Chinese idiom or proverb that goes, it's easy to break one chopstick, but when you have a bundle, it's almost impossible. But we'll get to that though.
Yeah, I was going to say, we probably get to it later.
Yeah.
always call it a movement. It's not a movement. If you actually want to change it, then you're moving. I always think of that way because people dedicated to and if I just individually
That's why I think you find so much in the writings of it being described as a cause. The cause it's often referred to. Should we continue?
It just gets so choppy.
What is that? Is that the?
Turkish delight.
Oh, nice.
It's the same.
So
For all our viewers that were here, listen.
it's like slow.
For all of you guys, yes, and it's being live streamed.
Yeah.
One little sort of side note here in this section here says what we're not discussing. I'll just read it. It says briefly, I feel it's important to briefly note that what we are not addressing, just as much as what we are, that being if after discussing the need for investigation in religion, if they then ask, well, how can you say there is evidence for God or something to that effect, note that this is a separate question than the one which we are addressing. This doesn't mean it is not a very valid question. It is simply not the one we are discussing right now. And it is an extra important to stop whomever you're speaking with from jumping topics before an issue is dealt with, just in general. It's always a sort of human nature to, like, when something new is presented that may be slightly uncomfortable, to ignore it and go, okay, yeah, but what about, without having actually concluded on this question or on this topic. Be able to go, oh yeah, but have we, just before we go to that, have we finalized this topic? If so, okay, let's move on to the next question.
What's the overall topic here?
Oh, sorry.
Is this the one about being a good decent person? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's continue. So, sorry, just a preamble. It's trying to, again, empathize with how sometimes even not just what they might have heard from religious people or their impression of religious people, but even what some Baha'is might have said and presented the faith as, maybe misquoting or misrepresenting in some ways. We'll give an example here, which is I think, and as well obviously Rob thinks, that is misused, this quote, and we'll see why, and because there are other quotes that sort of clarify it. But just trying to go into the role that even Baha'is might play into that confusion, that misunderstanding, which would lead them to have such sort of a why can't I just be a good person position. Sorry.
Our role in the misunderstanding. This understanding of the purpose of religion is often promoted by Baha'is themselves. When someone expresses their agreement with the teachings of the Baha'i faith, Baha'is can often be heard saying, "Oh, you are already a Baha'i."
My mom said this. So cute.
This seems very odd from a certain view, since it appears that we are agreeing they don't need to believe in Baha'u'llah. So where does this idea come from, and how might it be misunderstood?
Just give me it.
It makes no difference whether you have ever heard of Baha'u'llah or not. The man who lives the life according to the teachings of Baha'u'llah is already a Baha'i.
So essentially, obviously there's truths to it, but it may be too liberally used. But let's get into that. Again, we don't want to make it sound like, well, you need to believe in Baha'u'llah kind of thing. There's no like pushing us here, but just trying to look at it from the point of reason and why that the existence of that manifestation of God or of religion is a necessary thing. we can't necessarily use this quote to rule that out completely. But obviously, Abdu'l-Baha here is, of course, extolling and emphasizing the beauty of someone that's, in a way, is already Baha'i, right? But let's.
It's just the actions, not just the philosophy.
What's that?
If it's just by how they behave, how they act,
Mhm.
how they philosophy, a way of life.
Mhm.
So,
No, I know, and that's sort of the question here. That's the issue, yeah. You're right.
So, another fairly common citation is the Abdu'l-Baha's discourse on the matrix of the womb in comparison to the matrix of our current world.
Just pause. Is anyone familiar with that quote?
No.
We'll come to it, but it's that in the when the baby's inside the womb, it develops organs and arms and limbs and stuff, and that in this world we must develop our qualities for the next life. And it's often interpreted as, what are those arms and limbs and qualities? Well, it's the compassion and just and mercy and kindliness and cleanliness, just a whole bunch of virtues essentially, right? Which again can be taken as, well, okay, I'll just take those virtues. Why do I need religion? Again, you're kind of faced with that dilemma again, right? When you're interpreting it that way. Sorry, continue. I think
And the need for developing one's character and soul in this world, just as development was necessary in the previous. We will be looking at this analogy shortly. Keep reading.
So this quote, it might not be, okay, well, let's just go into it. I was going to say it might take longer, but it kind of addresses why this quote can't be read the way some people take it, meaning, well, that's it, you're done then, it's good enough kind of thing. And if you just live your life. The reason that it contradicts with other quotes from, this is directly from the Most Holy Book, from Baha'i himself. Just continue.
Sure. What does Baha'i say about this concept? The first duty prescribed by God for his servants is the recognition of him who is the dayspring of his revelation and the fountain of his laws, who represented the Godhead in both the kingdom of his cause and the world of creation. Whoso achieveth this duty hath attained unto all good, and whoso is deprived thereof hath gone astray, though he be the author of every righteous deed. It behooveth every one who reacheth this most sublime station, this summit of transcendent glory, to observe every ordinance of him who is the desire of the world. These twin duties are inseparable. Neither is acceptable without the other. Thus hath it been decreed by him who is the source of divine inspiration.
So this is probably familiar with a lot of Baha'is. This first paragraph, first few sentences of the Kitab al-Aqdas, the book, Most Holy Book, dives right into this question right away, which is that there's two essential qualities, right? One is the recognition of the manifestation of God in his day, and the other one is to observe every ordinance of him. And neither is acceptable without the other. So even if you want to interpret that observing all the ordinances or the laws of the religion as just virtues, even if you want to do that, it's saying that that's not enough. It's the recognition of the manifestation of God is essential duty for all mankind. This is kind of just summarizing that. So let's read another quote. Another quotation.
Another quotation from the Hall appears to stress this principle of the necessity of acceptance and revelation even by faith. This quotation comes from the Hall's work, The Summons of the Lord.
This is heavy.
Say, O ye manifestations of my names, should ye offer up all that ye possess, namely the very lives and the path of God, and devote them to the number of grains of sand, the drops of rain, and the waves of the sea, and yet oppose my decisions cause at the time as it appears. Your works shall no wise measure. Should we, however, neglect all righteous works and yet choose to believe the end of these days, like the transfer of holy sins? He verily is yet glorious and most powerful. Thus doth the Lord inform me of his purpose, that happy we may not wax proud before one who whatsoever hath been revealed in all eternity.
Right.
That last sentence, please.
Which one? Thus doth the Lord, that one?
Yeah, well, the last half of the latter half. And happy you may not wax proud before the one who whatsoever hath been revealed in all eternity.
The manifestation. This topic as well is discussed, of course, in the Quran, but also in the Bible as well. Most heavily in the book of the Gospel of John, book of Acts, Romans, especially Romans, and as well in James, which is kind of like a counterpoint as well, which is essentially the topic of the way it's described in the Bible as works versus faith. Works meaning good deeds, essentially, and faith meaning belief in Christ. And that it's interesting that this principle is also found there as well. And just like this dispensation, both are essential, both are necessary. One cannot be without the other, as Baha'i says above here. You can't. It's not acceptable to accept the manifestation of God but be complete hypocrite, right? But at the same time, it's also not acceptable the other way around either. But in this quote, it's saying, okay, well, if you had to pick, in a way, right?
Yeah.
One's primary over the other, but not that it's like having heart, lungs, and organs, but having no limbs. I mean, technically, I guess you could function, but I mean, it's not much of a life. You're not much of an existence. But without hearts and organs, you're dead. It's nothing. It's complete. That's my own personal analogy. I don't know if that's actually a legitimate analogy, but.
The question is it, you scroll up a little bit where it says, human life?
Where? Sorry, where?
Feast, right there, where it says,
Yeah.
19, I thought it was not compulsory. It's like encouraged, but it's not.
Yeah.
Or is it compulsory?
No, I mean, these are all ordinances, meaning including everything that's absolutely, irreprehensible, to things that are sort of encouraged, to, from murder to saying aloud or whatever it might be, or attending feast. Even smoking, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Technically, smoking isn't forbidden, but it's discouraged strongly, and it also those start to fall into categories of individual sort of relationship with the Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha. I think, and I think when you do, not that I would say this ever, but I think if you do have a closer relationship with someone, when someone asks something of you, even if it's just out of politeness, it's like it becomes law for you. It's like you do it because you love them so much, and it's like, of course I'll do that. It's that kind of a thing. But again, this is how I personally take it, how I personally essentially, again, this is not part of the conversation here with this good person discussion. Just essentially trying to get into where this misunderstanding might come from as well, even from among Baha'is, that it's understandable. That's essentially what we're saying. It's understandable that you can have this perspective, just because it's, and again, it's not that Baha'is or any religious person is doing it on purpose. They're not trying to hide or like be sneaky or something. It's just these topics can sometimes overlap, and it can be a little bit confusing sometimes. So it's just maybe a good exercise to even go through and try to find the boundary. So here's where we begin, basically. Here's where the actual discussion begins. That was an hour of preamble. Obviously, it's not an hour in the actual conversation with an individual, but we're really trying to. Yeah. Oh yeah. What? Again, mostly I think the way I look at these discussions and deepenings is mostly for me and for us, like as individuals, to sort of understand and appreciate the question more fully for ourselves. And if we can present it to others, all the better. I understand nothing?
The misunderstood embryo analogy, purpose. To consider the importance of Abdullah's metaphor of the embryo and address how a misuse of it can often cause misunderstanding as it relates to the objection we have studied. Let's look at an example of Abdullah using this metaphor. In the beginning of his human life, man was embryonic in the world of the matrix. There he received capacity and endowment for the reality of human existence. The forces and powers necessary for this world were bestowed upon him in that limited condition. In this world he needed eyes, he needed them potentially in the other. He needed ears, he obtained them there in readiness and preparation for his new existence. The powers requisite in this world were conferred upon him in the world of the matrix.
Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Everything's clear? Questions? Ariel? Okay. Continue, sir.
Therefore, in this world, he must prepare himself for the life beyond. That which he needs in the world of the kingdom must be obtained here, just as he prepared himself in the world of the matrix by acquiring forces necessary in this sphere of existence. So, likewise, this indispensable forces of the divine existence must be potentially attained in this world. What is he in need of in the kingdom which transcends the life and limitation of this mortal sphere? That world beyond is a world.
So pause for a second. Saying what's needed in this world. That's yeah. Go ahead.
You didn't finish the sentence.
What's
You finished it for
in
me.
this world or in the next world?
Oh,
Yeah. That's transcendent of earthly life.
That world beyond is a world of sanctity and radiance. Therefore, it is necessary that in this world he should acquire these divine attributes. In that world, there is need of spirituality, faith, assurance, the knowledge and love of God. These he must attain in this world, so after his ascension from the earthly to the heavenly kingdom, he shall find all that is needful in that eternal life ready for him. Okay, that divine world is manifestly a world of lights. Therefore, man has needs of illumination here. That is a world of love. The love of God is essential. It is a world of perfections. Virtues or perfections must be acquired. The world is vivified by the breaths of the Holy Spirit. In this world, we must seek them. That is the kingdom of everlasting life. It must be attained during this vanishing existence.
So yeah.
Like up to this point,
Yeah.
someone could still be like, "Oh, well, I can get all these things without religion." So.
Well, we'll discuss that, and that's not really possible. Because because he's listed off a whole bunch of things. We'll look at the list more carefully later. So he's not going to describe how can we achieve those list of things. Go ahead.
Okay. By what means can man acquire these things? How shall we obtain these merciful gifts and powers? First, through the knowledge of God. Second, through the love of God. Third, through faith. Fourth, through philanthropic deeds. Fifth, through self-sacrifice. Sixth, through severance from this world. Seventh, through sanctity and holiness. Unless he acquires these forces and attains to these requirements, he will surely be deprived of a life that is eternal. But if he possesses the knowledge of God, becomes ignited through the fire of the love of God, witnesses the great and mighty signs of the kingdom, becomes the cause of love among mankind, and lives in the utmost state of sanctity and holiness, he shall surely attain to second birth, be baptized by the Holy Spirit, and enjoy everlasting existence.
Let's continue.
Wait, can you summarize that last?
It's
Right here.
Oh.
Right here.
No,
Right here.
first word to summarize.
Kara, if you don't mind.
To summarize, we see in this quote above a series of things that are needed in the next world. Undeniably, virtues and conduct are essential. Senses are limbs. Abdul Baha clearly states it is a world of perfections, virtues, or perfections must be acquired. However, let us look at some other qualities that are listed above as necessary. Sanctity and radiance, spirituality, faith, assurance, and the knowledge of and love of God, illumination, rest of the Holy Spirit, and everlasting life. We'll review in this quote the 7 ways we acquire such things. 1, through the knowledge of God. 2, through the love of God. 3, through faith. 4, through philanthropic deeds. 5, through self-sacrifice. 6, through severance from this world. And 7, through sanctity and holiness.
I think personally there's a hierarchy here as well. It's not just 7 random things.
Yeah.
This is the sort of a 7-step process through which, well, I won't say it that way, but a hierarchy essentially of things that are fundamental before the others. And knowledge of God, Holy Spirit, like how is that ever? Like what is that? On a sort of individual basis, you're essentially would be claiming your own religion. Essentially, that's because that's what a prophet of God claims, right? And
What?
these often bringing these things, bringing the knowledge of God.
But,
Right.
but the reality of it is, I personally think people do, in a sense, claim their own religion like that. But like, I think people like today do claim that they're doing, or like can do these 7 things to their own.
Their own love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's take,
Yeah, honestly, people
It's
would
true.
say that.
Yeah.
It's funny because before I would have thought of self-sacrifice and severance from this world as being
Well, yeah, severance from this world is more. Is that up to interpretation, or is that saying literally like severance from material?
I think it's probably metaphorical, but it could be literal, but I think it's more,
Essentially, what this is, it's not trying to say that you don't have these things. I think it's saying that the metaphor that Abdu'l Baha is using to talk about the room in the matrix, it's not just simply being good. That's the topic, right? Why can't I just be a good person? So we're not trying to. I don't think it's. Just one second. I don't think it's helpful to include under the category of good person as these other 7 topics, shoving those things in there as well. Because what we're talking about is being. Because that was the original objection, right? Let's take one thing at a time. We'll get to the fact that you're creating your own religion maybe after. But the issue, the question of why can't I just be a good person? As far as what the writings say, what the Baha'i writings say is that, as you see here, oops, philanthropic deeds. It's one of them. That's one. That's essentially what it kind of comes down to. This is really the first point that we're making is that from the perspective of the Baha'i faith, we won't sort of project our view to other religious groups. But as far as the Baha'i viewpoint worldview is concerned, the purpose of religion is, you can offer this analogy or this metaphor of the matrix, but that being good is simply one of those list of things that's necessary. Being good is essential again because it's obviously in there, philanthropic deeds, but there are a whole host of other things that religion is. Religion is these things, right? It's not just being a good person. If that was true, then you're absolutely right. But so it's not just about being a good person.
So just to think that was advocates involved.
Yeah.
And you say that self-sacrifice, severance from the world, check, and this can all fall under the umbrella category of philanthropic deeds. engaging in the acts of philanthropic deeds, you can be self-sacrificial. Like you can sever yourself from the world. You can, demonstrate sanctity and holiness.
Mhm.
And in the first few points, who cares? Like, why would I even care about the
Yeah,
knowledge?
that's what I was gonna say. Is like
Right?
Oh, that's fine. No,
the
no.
authority
Yeah.
of that.
No problem. Oh, sorry. We didn't get to your point.
So my mind's different.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, sure, I agree with points
Yeah.
4 to 7.
Yeah.
They could all fall underneath philanthropic deeds.
Okay.
But then why should I even care about the knowledge of God?
Well, that's actually the
Why is that important?
well,
Why
that's
is that important to me?
exactly. But that's the whole question. That's actually the topic, which is I have philanthropic deeds, which are throwing other things in there, and you're excluding other things that are essential parts of what religion is. So right now we're just trying to define what religion is. Just simply saying that being religious it requires more than just being good. It's essentially just saying that. Not that you should agree or that therefore it's true or any kind of proof or something. It's just that let's just first define what we're talking about. Religion isn't just turn the other cheek or something, right?
But there's a lot of people that do like philanthropic, like all sorts of things, right? And they're making money off of it somehow. So like sometimes it doesn't exactly all fall under that.
Yeah, I think it helps to make sure it's morally guided and
Yeah.
you're not still just serving your own
So like
interests.
doing
Serving
charities
it for
and
the love of
making
God.
bank from it at the same time.
And I think these quotes kind of come together from like different angles too. Like for somebody potentially like being Baha'i without knowing Baha'u'llah, I think that also goes in a way for people who haven't heard of Baha'u'llah.
Yeah.
Versus if you are in a world where you have access to knowledge and education and you can like research online and
Big
stuff.
time.
I think once you're exposed, and if you do have a love for God already, which is probably what I pointed this earlier, then you should be the analogy of sifting through the sands looking for anything that has to do with Him.
Yeah. That's a very good.
Makes sense.
Perfect. Yeah.
People should, if they do have a love for God, they should want to know as much as they can about God and what God wants, and therefore should investigate theoretically probably all of the manifestations but for this day and age.
Yeah.
So
I'll just read the sort of summary of it. Right away, we see that the development of a human being in this world, in preparation for the next, demands many different qualities, understandings, and expressions beyond just those of gaining in virtue, at least as virtue is commonly used, right? So, getting to the definition of what it means to be philanthropic and that kind of things, we can discuss just later. But as far as it's commonly understood, what philanthropic deeds are, social activism, and all that. It's just it's a single point of it. In fact, at this point, if a person came to us and said, "Why can't I just be a good person?" it would be in keeping to reply, "My friend, that is like saying, I have hands, why would I need eyes? Or I have legs, why would I need ears?" Goodness is essential, yet there are other vital faculties to develop. We are not, however, suggesting this is how someone should respond, rather merely trying to demonstrate the distinction. Also note that at this point, we are not trying to explain why these are what need to be developed, only that as Baha'is, we do not scripturally believe that the list becomes exhausted after virtues. So, meaning it's not just simply virtues. In the end, we agree with the person that virtues and ethics are essential. We simply believe there is much more to the story. Let us move on to examining what the story is.
One thing, if a person doesn't believe in like life after death, this is like pretty much impossible to get across to them.
Yeah.
Again, we're not trying to. We started with a foundation of someone existing the existence of God, but in trying to prove those things, it's a separate discussion, I think. It's just presenting what is the Baha'i view on this, what is the Baha'i perspective on this, and obviously Baha'is believe in an afterlife, so we're going to have to take that for granted for now. Right?
Being good is not just going to be good.
That's essentially it, yeah. when you define it that way, it's you've kind of strawmanned it basically. You've cornered it in a position that's very easy to attack, right? Easy to defeat. We'll get into some other awesome aspects as well. That's kind of okay. We're going for sorry. Sorry, skip it. Who's it? I think Arya.
Me?
Yeah, that's it.
The purpose of the manifestations of God. Purpose, to show that the reasons for religion are many, and while they incorporate goodness, that is only one aspect of religion's purpose. Anyone who has read a holy text, be it the Bible of Christianity, the Quran of Islam, the Bhagavad Gita, or Upanishads of Hinduism, or the Dhammapada of Buddhism, will quickly realize that they are not books that only tell you over and over again, and only to be good, and only to be good. These works contain allegories and metaphors of divine reality, introduce you to the person of the manifestation of God, reveal law and ritual, the nature of man, individually and as a species, our purpose and our capacities, and tell us of the realms outside of and beyond this world. In short, ethics and virtue are part of these revelations, not the whole. This, I feel, is a crucial point, as it is not only largely ends the initial conversation, but is also a response to an often heard criticism of religion, that being that religion may be nice, but that doesn't make it true. Well, in this case, we would offer the same thing in reply, actually. It is a matter of truth.
So essentially, that religion is the manifestations of God, right? And found what they have revealed, found in their holy texts. Reveal basically a reality that is not of this world, and not just a reality, but also a relationship with something that's not of this world. And it's kind of weird to say that you don't need that, and you just want the good stuff, or you just want the virtues stuff, right? Like, leave out the bad stuff.
It's actually already the good stuff.
Well, meaning virtues, not the rules, but yeah, the sort of philanthropic principles, or social teachings, equality of man and woman, that kind of stuff, right? It's the kind of thing I was thinking about this on the way here, actually. It's, I don't know if this analogy, maybe this analogy needs to be tweaked and adjusted, but I was thinking of it as like in The Matrix, the movie The Matrix, where taking the red pill sort of unplugs you and sort of reveals what is existence, what is reality, what is truth, and what truly is the universe and the world, not as it's commonly seen. And then someone were to say, "It's okay, I already have vitamins at home." It's kind of a totally missing the point type of objection. It's like, that's not really why this pill is being given to you. It's not really, you know what I mean? It's a claim of what reality is, of what our souls are, who human beings are, what is the nature of God, the nature of the messengers of God in the past. How are we to all build a unified, harmonious future? How is that possible? All these type of questions, which it's claiming, right? What is our fate in the world beyond once we die? These are all in the domain of scripture, right? When you read the Bible or read the Quran, or it's just completely metaphysical realities, worlds. It's not even, you're not even here almost, in a sense. As I was thinking, maybe the Matrix metaphor kind of works. It's like, it's really like, it's like you're wearing sort of different lenses. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, yeah. I love that movie.
Search into the truth of something or not.
Yeah.
Whether you want to just live in bliss or ignorance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one, and also the Truman Show. They're both sort of parallel in a way. Oh, you gotta watch it. It's Jim. Yeah, it's Jim Carrey, but it's essentially the same. It's like that world. The world is a show. Is just sort of all of your senses are led by this show, this world around you, and he, through some obscure signs and hints, he finds he needs to find the truth behind them, and eventually sort of escapes the show, obviously, right at the end. But so it's similar in a way to Matrix, which is that he's sort of comfortable in this world and finds a way of is given the choice to sort of take the red pill. This personally, I this part of the answer I personally like the best, just because it realigns the discussion as to what we're actually talking about. It's not saying you're wrong. It's not saying that like no, this is what you need to do type of thing. It's just that I think it's like, okay, I think your definition or description of what religion is not exactly accurate or misunderstood. This is what it's claiming to be. You may reject it, that's fine, but let's just be clear as to what it is and what it's claiming and what worlds its vistas it's presenting. I should not leave out, by the way, among those claims and those worlds and the vision of reality is, of course, the byproduct of it being virtuous qualities and character and all that. Philanthropic, please. So the quote that follows was from the Bab. It says, "The purpose of God in creating man is but for him to know him." That's the purpose, to know him, to have a relationship. We of a certainty have had no purpose in this earthly realm save to make God manifest and to reveal his sovereignty. Sufficient unto me is God as for witness.
I read the other page. This line, I'm not to make God.
Oh. Should we go around, just finish this quote? You already read it, madam? Go ahead, sir.
The messengers have been sent down, and their books were revealed, for the purpose of promoting the knowledge of God and of furthering the unity and fellowship.
He chose to confer upon man the unique distinction and capacity to know him and to love him, a capacity that must needs be regarded as the generating impulse and the primary purpose underlying the whole of creation. This should be just weird. At minimum, it should be just weird to a secular person, which is good. It's like at least you're getting your definitions correct. You know what I mean? At least we're talking about the same. We're on the same page here. This can sorry. Go ahead.
His purpose, however, is to enable the pure in spirit and the detached in heart to ascend by virtue of their own innate powers unto the shores of the most great ocean, that thereby they who seek the beauty of the all-glorious may be distinguished and separated from the wayward and perverse. The purpose of God in creating man hath been and will ever be to enable him to know his Creator and to attain his presence. To this most excellent aim, this supreme objective, all the heavenly books and the divinely revealed and weighty scriptures unequivocally bear witness.
It's as if the child in the womb, while still in the womb, has been given a capacity to recognize and to have a relationship with his mother before it's born. Did you read this one already? Yeah. Mhm. It's true. Mhm. Yeah.
I guess not to survive.
Yeah, it's true. Just yeah. So what? I did check recently. The right from the top. Why then?
What?
Why then does God do this?
Okay. Why then does God do this? Is this for his own self? Baha'i tells us well. The purpose underlying the revelation has been to educate all men, that they may, at the hour of death, ascend in the utmost purity and sanctity, and with absolute attachment to the throne of the Most High. Okay?
Yeah, please.
The purpose of the one true God, exalted be his glory, in revealing himself unto men, is to lay bare those gems that lie hidden in the mind of the true and inmost self.
So this should be relating to that one of the items listed by Abdul Baha being the knowledge of God. Remember, it's explaining what that is. So this is at least the Baha'i definition of what knowledge of God means.
Through the teachings of this day star of truth, every man will advance and develop until he attaineth the station at which he can manifest all the potential forces with which his inmost true self hath been endowed. It is for this very purpose that in every age and dispensation the prophets of God and his chosen ones have appeared amongst men, and have evinced such power as is born of God, and such might as only the eternal can reveal.
So we do see to release our potential forces, the knowledge of God, but also we do see purification of our conduct in there as well. Right? This is from the daily obligatory prayer that the Baha'is are to say once a day, is describing our purpose. Please,
That would be something like God, but that's really into negative philosophy. That's like this one, how to sense into it, how to think about it. That love, everything that God would be, how to self-existent.
So it's really, again, trying to, I think, I would emphasize the subtlety and the sort of accurate and clear understanding of what it is to be religious, to what religion is. And once we look at these writings, it's very clear that it's right.
Thank you, Eric.
You know what I mean. What were you gonna say?
No, yeah, that like know God, to know God is like truly knowledge of His manifestation.
Even from the first quote of the Akas, our duty to be the recognition of the manifestation of God must be. I think those just sort of presenting religion and what Baha'u'llah's claim is, and what Jesus' claim is, so they're all along the same lines. I think offers not to prove anybody wrong or to say you know what you're talking about, but to say that this is what it's claiming to be, and then a natural questions out of that would be sort of why is this the knowledge of God? Like how is this the knowledge of God? is this truly the knowledge of God? And sort of lead to discussions on those topics, and even self-reading of the texts themselves, right? That's really where the investigation eventually has to be. It can't just be back and forth dialogues, right? To read the Book of Certitude, read Paris Talks, read even One Common Faith or other works. Read the Quran, read the Bible, right? That's essentially what you'll more accurately understand as to what it is.
Anybody wants to?
No, thank you. We'll discuss later, by the way, as to, because we still haven't discussed, yeah, but why do we need those things? So far we've said that those are essential, right? Those are the claims. Those are the essential limbs and organs that are need to be developed here, right? Those, the knowledge of God, the love of God, all those different things. But we still haven't actually addressed why not leave those things out.
I still think
It should be clear, by the way, at this point, why you can't leave those things out, right? If you're like kind of can follow the logic, if you're sort of fair with it, you can see that obviously you can't things out. If we're assuming a Baha'i presentation on the topic from the Baha'i perspective, it's like leaving out, again, like we discussed above, leaving out your ears and eyes and other essential organs, right? So obviously you can't leave those things out. That's essentially what it means to know God, to recognize God. But the question comes to how do we verify Baha'u'llah's legitimacy? How do we know Baha'u'llah is who he says he is, right? And that's good. That's a good area to go into. Sorry, go ahead.
I like kind of just to play devil's advocate. Like I still think that we're using the Baha'i writings to define to say what knowledge of God is.
The authority, yeah, that's not the authority for them.
And yeah, and like
Of course,
they can easily say, "Well, that's what you believe." Like that's not what I think.
Of course, and again, I think this discussion so far is not to give evidence as to why that's true. You see what I mean? There's a little bit difference. So far up until this point, it's just been what is religion from the Baha'i perspective. That's it. Does that make sense?
So you're just presenting
What it claims to be.
your side, essentially.
This is the claim. Yeah, this is the claim. Okay, well, we'll get into why that's true, or why you would need it, or why that it is the way it is, or why Baha'u'llah even has that authority to even make that claim in the first place, right? Which is what you're saying, right? How does Baha'u'llah?
When someone doesn't already
That's just
believe
someone saying it. Yeah,
in the manifestation,
obviously.
it's hard to like use what the
I was
manifestation
going to
says.
say, this is like irrelevant if they don't even.
No, it's not irrelevant because we're not using it to prove it to be true. That's a distinction
You're
there.
showing
We're just saying what it's
Yeah.
claiming,
Yeah, no, I
right? There's a
It's not
distinction.
assuming that somebody has a baseline belief of what.
Yeah,
like,
this
is-
isn't. Yeah,
Like I think it's a stronger point to make that like what we were saying, like it is like how you need the mother, like you need the umbilical cord to develop all those things.
Mhm.
I think it's a stronger point to make that like you need the manifestation the same way to be able to connect to something higher to gain all those qualities.
or not,
What?
or we don't. Like it's just. That's what you're saying. That's what you're saying as a Baha'i. Like we need that.
Yeah.
What I mean is that doesn't prove either. But what I think it's important is that just to again, it's not so far. What's being presented is not a rationale or a rebuttal to the objection, but it's trying to start off from a accurate definition starting point. What are we talking about? Let's just start from there. I mean, when you say why can't I just be a good person? Why do I need religion? Okay, well let's discuss what religion is in the first place. What is it claiming to be? That you're saying I don't need it.
But we're presenting it as our understanding still.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And this is what Baha'i is claiming to be, and obviously you may reject it, you may accept it, whatever it may be, and you may still think it's irrelevant, but we'll discuss that now on a basis of accurate.
So the purpose of this section is not to come to a common understanding of what is religion or that, but
Not to a common understanding, no.
Okay.
To present the definition accurately, and it should be a common understanding, because not that they would agree with it, but they should definitely agree that this is what religion claims.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Not that they believe it,
Yeah.
but they would say, yeah, that is what religion claims. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Let's not say that religion is like, well, I can't just be a good person. What am I religion for? If all it is turning the other cheek and that kind of sort of a misrepresentation of religion.
Mm-hmm.
So at least let's be clear whether you're talking about Christianity, the Baha'i faith, or any prophetic claim. Let's be clear as to what it is.
Yeah.
From the outset.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Does that
Yeah.
answer your question? So we're trying to jump ahead maybe, as to
Mhm.
what the answer is, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Do our viewers have anything to add?
I don't think so. I don't know how I would see it. Hold on a second. Let me check the YouTube.
That was
Ooh.
a constant whole time.
It could be, yeah.
Oh my god.
No.
One watching. That's. Oh wait.
Oh,
Can you
So
upload
now
the
when
document?
somebody watches
Oh.
this,
Oh,
like,
sorry.
There we go. Could you
Yeah.
upload the
Watching
document?
that.
On my phone.
Is it
Is
yours?
Oh,
that
yeah.
you?
who is
Was it
that?
one of you guys? Could you upload the
We have a
document
link.
on the FB page?
Wait,
Oh, and
I
sorry
believe
that I
this.
couldn't make it today. Oh, okay.
Come on.
blind guy.
It's somebody.
Who
I don't know.
is it?
But yes, I will.
Reveal yourself. You watching now.
You want
Wait.
That's me. That's me. Because I'm watching it now.
be one
At feast.
trendy guy.
Oh, I think
It
that's
might be-
Manager.
It
No.
might be Nemo.
It
Why
could
would
be,
it be blind guy?
it could be Bobak.
Yeah.
Who?
It could be Bobak.
Oh yeah.
Anyways.
Yo, say your name.
There's like a 30-second delay. It won't even work.
Wait, let's just wait 3 seconds.
He might not be watching at this point either. Well, let me
Did
get
you
this
see when you
document.
commented
Is it
that?
live?
Yeah.
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 I thought you guys were actually kidding when you said live streaming. I didn't.
When did you
Watching.
comment?
I said, no, this is
Oh,
serious.
you can see when they call
Hold
it the shot.
Doesn't even say
Go
that.
Today.
inside. What the hell?
What?
It's not good. Report. Put user in timeout.
Hold on,
Today you don't have time.
let me go into the. Let me just fill out.
Oh, yo, I'm not part of that group.
Good person.
Too bad. That's down.
Dude.
I haven't. That's part.
Hey, did you send me on the Christianity one? Did you ask for? You know on Facebook, right? And you're like, what's your email? You want one, dude.
Okay. Hold on 1 second. I don't know if I did. Let me stop this streaming also. Yeah, yeah. Streaming. Hang on. Let me just. Okay, so let's look at it. Yeah, we're gonna end it now. Right now, yeah, we're at page 8 of 16, so halfway through.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Thumbs up. Leave some thumbs up.
Smash that like button.
Smash that.
So we'll leave it. Yeah, we'll leave it here. So. Bye-bye.
Continue.